In example 5, we need to graph this wonderful equation right here. It's a cosine equation. Looks like our amplitude hasn't changed out here, and it looks like k is 1, so our period should be 2 pi. Remember that the period is 2 pi over k, so 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi. Also, we need to figure out the phase shift. The phase shift is c over k, which is pi over 1, or just pi. Notice that it's a positive sign, so this is left by pi. If you want to put the negative sign here, you can do that. Minus 2, that's the vert shift, so it's going to be negative 2 or down 2. When I am labeling my y-axis, I like to see what my vertical shift is and then also what my amplitude is. Keep in mind your amplitude is just 1. So if I labeled these with negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3, we would actually be able to fit this in. So I'm going to move this example up just a little bit. I hope you can see that stuff on the top there, kind of barely, but you should have it on your sheet, I suppose. And what we can do now is we can just label this as negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. With an amplitude of 1, we're going to be up 1 and also down 1. The phase shift and the period will be next. Usually when you graph these, you're going to need to do at least one full period. Where that happens on the graph is up to you, and what scale you're going to use is up to you. So we know we have to shift everything pi left. I think it's probably going to be easiest for us if we either use 2 pi as this mark, or you could even use 2 pi here. Let's see if we can use 2 pi all the way over here, if that will help us see the shape of this thing. It wouldn't be wrong if you chose a different scale. If you made this 2 pi, that'd be fine. If you made this tick mark 2 pi, that might be a little tough because you're going to have to go up and then back down and so on. So we'll make this 3 pi over 2 here. This would be negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and then all the way on the end here would be negative 2 pi. When I'm drawing these graphs, I really like to draw my top line, midline, and bottom line. But I draw my top line and my bottom line first, and then draw the midline next. It doesn't really matter which way you do it. I guess that's just my personal preference. And I use the same thing when I'm trying to find the midline. Perhaps that's where it comes from. So I just do my top and bottom line here. You could also very easily, it might be even easier in this case, to draw your midline first and then just go up 1, draw the top line, and down 1. So that would totally work. For some reason I might be backwards on this here, but it does work if you draw your top line, bottom line, and midline. So you can label that if you want. That's the top, that's the mid, that's the bottom line. And then one more thing I like to do is I like to divide my section up here, one full period, into 4 different quarters. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a little line here. Oops. Draw a little line here. Draw a little line here and here. And you can now see that we have split up one full period into 4 different sections. You'll find out real quick here why that's kind of nice. The next thing I like to do is I like to graph without the phase shift. So what I can do to graph without the phase shift, let me try to find a good marker here that we haven't used quite yet. And what we can do is it's a cosine curve, so we know we're going to start up 1. Yes, I know it's a negative 1, but I mean up at the very top line. Then we know we're going to start down first. There is no reflection, or else we would have to start here. We're going to come down, hit the midline, then come back up. So those are 5 points on these 4 quarters, and you can imagine here's the first line, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And so this graph without the phase shift here is going to look something like this. I'm just going to draw it in lightly. You can use a full line or a dash line, but just understand that this is a helper graph to help us to graph the actual function that we need to graph here. So what we need to do now is we need to apply the phase shift. And the phase shift is pi to the left. So we're going to take each one of these points and shift it left by a distance of pi. So pi over 2 would come over here, and this one would come right over here. Next one is here. The next one is here. What this allows us to do now is it allows us to just connect the dots in a nice curved fashion. You could totally continue this and keep going. Most times though, you're just going to need to show one full period with this. So this one will be enough right here. The one in red, that is the solution. So if we look at our equation at the very top here, this equation is graphed in red here. So this is the actual graph. You can do the phase shift at the same time as the other ones. I just think it makes more sense to graph one period of it so that you can get those basic values down and then shift every single point by whatever the value is.